Welcome back to Dateline Hamden. I'm your host, Paul Bass, inviting you to look behind the headlines on the stories that make our community tick. Boy, last night, Hamden was ticking. People from New Haven, Hamden, even as far as Newtown, I understand,
Yeah.
crammed a meeting of the Legislative Council of Hamden. And all other business was suspended because people needed to talk about a very upsetting incident that took place in Hamden last week and then in New Haven's New Hallville community involving the Hamden police.
Yeah.
And people spent 5 hours demanding action from people like the gentleman in our room today, who has been on both sides of the line on this one, Justin
Well,
Farmer.
a little bit longer than that. 'Cause you had the 6 hours they shut down New Haven, and then the 5 hours that they shut down Hamden. So
Wow.
we're going towards a little bit over 16 hours of
Yes.
talking.
So our guest today is Justin Farmer. He's a legislative council member in Hamden, so he helps pass the laws in Hamden. But he's also been a longtime activist on the ground against police misconduct long before he became a legislative council member. So the people he marches in the streets with showed up last night to make a plea to him and his colleagues in the legislative council. Let's just quickly sum it up for everybody. A little after 4 in the morning last Tuesday, Hamden cop gets a report of an attempted possible armed robbery, although no gun was shown. And in fact, there was no gun, at a gas station in Hamden. He crosses into New Hallville looking for the Honda Civic involved. He finds it, and then in violation of all protocol, he and a Yale cop box in the car. He goes up the door, orders the driver out. As the driver starts to open the door, he starts firing bullets in. And from what I understand, this will be confirmed by the video, he then goes to the other side of the car and starts directly firing more bullets in. 2 unarmed people in the car. They put their seats back, otherwise I understand it would have been death. Instead, the woman in the passenger seat gets hit in the torso, and then broken glass apparently hits her face. Hamden cop gets hit, at least 16 shots fired. And now everyone's been marching in the streets, as Justin Farmer just said, shut down downtown New Haven for 6 hours last Thursday night. And then last night, Monday night, big crowd at the Hamden Council saying, we want an independent investigation. We don't trust the state's attorney to do it. Justin Farmer, what do you have to say about that? And please get close to the mic.
As being a person who is now in elected office, there are calls for transparency. There's been calls for transparency. In fact, that's one of the reasons why I ran. If the community is asking us for an independent investigation, that's something that we should do. If they're asking for a civilian review board, that's something that we need to look into. Right now, we lack legitimacy. Government can't be legitimate when you have people shutting down operations of work and how things are happening, because they are frustrated and irate with the decisions they have made and continue to make.
So do you support, the demand last night specifically was to have someone other than police investigate this, have the Hamden Council hire someone for $50,000, not sure how they came up with that number, to do, and maybe an attorney or someone like that, to do an independent investigation into what happened when those 2 officers fired. So this is assumption that the state's attorney is not going to come up with a satisfactory report. I would normally agree because of the state police doing such a bad job. I actually have this hunch people are going to be satisfied with the report, but I'm not sure from what I'm hearing inside.
I can't speculate on how. I'm low on the totem pole of governance, so I don't know how things work. I feel comfortable to say I don't think video would be. I don't think the state's attorney's office would talk about releasing a video so soon if video wasn't already out there. I don't think that
I see what you're saying.
a call to justice and having such forward transparency would happen so fast if it wasn't for the fact of people shutting down 2 major cities.
So you're saying that the public pressure, which has been daily, overwhelming, and by the way, police are not defending these cops and these actions either.
No.
So you're saying that it's only because of public pressure that we're getting as far as we are, which is that sometime this week are expected to see the police body cam video.
We've had deaths already in this state over the last couple of years due to police brutality.
We had one this morning,
Yeah,
Justin. You heard the man died in Wethersfield. Mr. Vega Cruz was shot by Weathersfield
Yeah,
police. Was he unarmed too? I didn't follow
I,
that.
I don't recall all the circumstances, but even the fact that, I obviously police have a job, and obviously there's conduct on ways to do that. But when the whole fake news epidemic was happening, as an investigative journalist, I'm sure you were more conscientious of your job and making sure that you would stay in those parameters. It's concerning to me that shortly after, we've had several shooting instances with police in the state of Connecticut, not somewhere else, but in the state of Connecticut. We've had these issues over the last couple of days. Even Sunday, there was an incident with someone who needed medical attention and should have been brought to the hospital.
I didn't know about it.
And
Where was that?
this was at the rally. And as I was sitting there at the rally, officers came through, and they pulled over someone. The man was mentally unstable. They claimed he injured himself, and they said they were going to take him to the hospital. But they had him there for a half hour bleeding. And it wasn't until people came over and started asking questions that an ambulance came after a half hour. And then 10 minutes after that, a fire truck came. Literally being a block away, you would think that as people are demanding justice and are talking about policing matters, that such an incident wouldn't happen literally a block away. So I think to your point, I believe that the reason why we are seeing such haste is because there is alarming concern from the community.
And therefore, you saying that it's only community pressure that got us as much transparency as we've gotten so
As
far.
fast.
So that's why you do support this proposal to spend $50,000 for an independent investigation by Hamden.
Yeah, I for me, it's not a hard ask of the community. The budget is a moral document, and the budget is made up by the taxpayers of Hamden. So if taxpayers are telling me they want me to spend their money on an independent investigation, that's my job.
Now, we've just been joined by Carrie Ellington. Carrie Ellington is a longtime social justice activist in New Haven. When something big happens in town, her voice adds to the mix. Carrie, you've been involved from day one of this incident over the last week, which has felt like many more weeks to many of us in New Haven, at protests. Carrie, you were there last night in Hamden. Do you second Justin's position? Do you believe Hamden should be spending $50,000 for an independent investigation?
Refer to myself as a community organizer. I organize with People Against Police Brutality. We're building a movement around the state to against police violence, essentially. What happened? So we've helped to organize in coalition with some other grassroots groups on the ground that have been involved in this fight with us, the actions over the past week. And we definitely think that, we really want to see cities, when they are met with police violence, cities like Hamden, cities like New Haven, Bridgeport, have a way of not taking accountability when police officers exercise excessive and lethal force and exercise unjustified lethal force. They have a way of, when they are met with community demands of saying that they're going to wait for the state's attorney's office to do its criminal investigation, and we think that's a failure of local government. Local government should be accountable in ensuring that the police officers who are hired at these municipal levels really service and protect the people, and don't and don't cause violence and terror, like we saw in the neighborhood on April of Dixwell and Argyle Street on April 16th. So we definitely want Hamden, the city of Hamden, to take accountability, to utilize its police commission, which has the power to hire, fire, and discipline officers, and to immediately begin an independent investigation and to fund that. And we think it may even be more than $50,000. It may be $150,000, but we want the city to fund an independent investigation. They should have done this immediately. it hasn't even begun yet. So
Carrie,
right now,
do you want it done through the police commission?
we do.
And why because they're the ones set up for this. They have subpoena power.
They're set up. They within Hamden's government, the same way the Bridgeport Police Commission is set up, the same way New Haven's Police Commission is set up, and we have police commissions across our nation. They're set up to hold officers accountable when they break department protocol. And what we do not see are those bodies being active in moments like this, and that's unacceptable.
1977 was the last time.
I'm sorry, Paul. I didn't mean to interrupt you. It's a failure of local government in taking responsibility in the role of police violence. So beyond the officers' wrongdoing and the officers' unconscionable actions on Tuesday, the police commission being silent, the Hamden Police Commission being silent and failing to be active in this moment, and to properly do its job and to judge whether or not this officer, Devin Eaton, has the right to be on this department after he clearly broke, and we all saw the videos, clearly broke department protocols. That body should be very active right now. They should be doing everything in its power to ensure that this officer is investigated and is terminated for the unconscionable actions we saw Tuesday night, in addition to Yale Police Department, which is, different.
We're talking to Carrie Ellington and Justin Farmer, community organizer Carrie Ellington. Justin Farmer, longtime community activist and now a member of the Hamden Legislative Council, where last night Carrie Ellington and dozens of other people spent more than 5 hours urging the council to take some action promptly to restore public trust in the face of last week's officer-involved shooting. I always find that an interesting phrase, officer-involved shooting. It kind of sugarcoats it, but
yes, it does.
So what about, the police chief? Last November, we were told Hamden was going to get a new police chief. They put out, people applied. I think there were 16, if I'm not mistaken, 15 applications. Then all of a sudden, radio silence. There's an active chief who's been there 30 years. Justin, do you know what the status is of a search for a new chief, and you'd like to see someone from New Haven there?
No, I don't know. I've asked several times. I've been prominent. My concern, and I've said this months ago, and no disrespect to acting chief Cappiello, but we need to have a transparent process to pick a police chief. People need the ability to ask the chief questions, what their concerns will be, how they will handle situations, and be held accountable by the community. Now, the mayor of Hamden has decided not to take that directive. Per charter, his responsibilities, he is allowed to appoint a police chief.
But he hasn't yet. Like, when are we going to get one?
Apparently, we don't have enough applicants.
Who said that?
The mayor, more or less.
Where was that? Because I've been trying to get some information out of them.
And that's my frustration. I'm the majority whip in the town of Hamden, and I can't.
I've heard of some pretty prominent people applying for that job. Would you like to see someone from New Haven hired? A whole bunch of New Haven people have applied, or is that not the issue?
For me, the issue is not rather what race the person is, what sex they are, where they come from. It's whether they are capable to do the job. And in terms of community policing, are they capable and willing to listen to the community on what policing looks like for them? Mm-hmm. So I don't know why an applicant hasn't been picked, and I've said multiple times, we need one police issue after another. I've said we need to have a process to pick a police chief, because worst case scenario, if something happens, things happen in life. But if the community has picked a leader and decided they're going to put their trust in that person, then there's accountability.
What do you folks think we're going through? It's 2 African-American cops who committed this awful shooting. The first cop obviously freaked out. From what I'm told, we're going to see the body camera. Not only did he fire 3 initial shots at someone who was following his order to open the door, but he apparently ran. We'll see if this is true when it comes out. He apparently ran to the other side, point blank, started firing in the passenger side, at least another dozen bullets, cracked the window. Though apparently the people were leaning back maybe, and that's the only reason they weren't killed. And the woman was hit with the torso, and then glass shattered her face. What do you think was going through the cop's mind? Because without it all justifying anything he did, because no one's justifying it, I'm really curious why he did it. Any thoughts?
Well, Paul, I just want to I just want to constantly, People Against Police Brutality has been constantly pointing to the fact that this is not about individual officers, that the nature of policing is violent at its foundation, at its core. And that is a shift that is a major shift that we need to change in this country if we're going to have any semblance of peace and of peace in this country, right? Because we clearly see a country divided. We clearly see communities divided on the issue of police violence. So it's almost irrelevant to me of what was going through his mind, because we know that, you know, Anthony Vega just lost his life. He was shot twice in the head by a Wethersfield police officer. We understand he was passed away on life support as of 2 days ago. The media just reported this yesterday. I'm really confused as to why the reports came out so late. But police violence is an epidemic. It's not about a question of good apples and bad apples. We have it's systemic, state-sanctioned violence in our communities. Every 28 hours, a Black man, woman, or child is gunned down by someone sanctioned by the state or by a vigilante in this country.
So do you think understanding the psychology would help us, though?
I'm sorry?
Wouldn't understanding the psychology help us to understand why a cop did it?
Well, I think the psychology is violence. I think that policing, the foundation of policing is through force. It's right. It's enforcing laws and policy by force with guns. We're in the midst of a national conversation of gun violence in America, and we are having binary conversations and around gun violence, and we're not including the fact that police violence is gun violence, right? So when we say, you know, why doesn't the community react to Black on Black crime, or to, you know, whatever kind of deflections people come up with, it's all violence, it's all gun violence, and it's all unacceptable. And we need to start having more inclusive conversations that allow us to explore the violence of policing and to shift that. Okay, so it's not about this individual officer. Yep.
Excuse me for interrupting. Yes, the FCC requires me at this very moment to remind people that they're listening to WNHH LP, your home for community radio, 103.5 FM, live streamed at newhavenindependent.org. We're broadcasting from New Haven, Connecticut. You're listening to Dateline Hamden about the horrible officer-involved shooting, meaning cops shut up a car and injured a woman last week. Brian Slattery is our host for the local New Haven music show coming up. Brian, you said we have a few extra minutes. We're running over here, and we're visiting with Justin Farmer and Carrie Ellington, who have helped keep the issue in our attention every day. Now, Carrie Ellington and Justin Farmer, one of the issues that's been raised is whether New Haven State's attorney should be responsible for the investigation. The state police are conducting the investigation under the auspices of the state's attorney's office, who will decide whether or not to prosecute. When, by law, if an officer shoots someone dead, by law, the state has to assign that investigation to a different jurisdiction. The philosophy being that that state's attorney has too close a working relationship with local police to give a fair, independent review. So, because Mr. Vega just died, only then has, as of I think a few hours ago, the state's, we just got a release, the state's attorney statewide office has reassigned that case to a Hartford state's attorney to investigate. In Bridgeport, I know a case that Kerry brought to our attention last summer during the gubernatorial campaign. A young man was killed, and there again, the Waterbury state's attorney was brought in. Fortunately, no one died in the shooting, which means by law it does not need to be reassigned. So Patrick Griffin, who does have the confidence of the local police and the mayor of New Haven, is conducting this. Justin Elliker, who's running for, oh my God, a lot of comments here. Who's running for mayor, has suggested it should be switched. Tony Harp said, I don't want someone from Waterbury who doesn't know our community to investigate this. I'm comfortable with Griffin. Samuel Ross Lee, the Reverend, wrote, the whole point is for them not to know our community because they can be distanced. Any thoughts?
It should be the community's choice. I'm often concerned when we have governance. These questions should be asked by community members, and it should be our leaders who've commented already. they should hold a forum, ask these questions to the community, to have that discussion, to make that choice. That, as far as I'm concerned, that is not my decision. That is a decision that needs to be held by the community. Otherwise, we lack accountability.
Kerry, should Kerry Ellington, should New Haven State's attorney be doing this investigation? Should it be someone other, or is it just irrelevant because they're really not the right people to investigate?
From seeing, it's been 20 people killed by police in Connecticut. That's publicly documented over the course of the past 3 years, from April 2016
Wow.
to now to April 2019.
I had no idea about that.
We have yet to see the chief state's attorney's office, so that includes all of these actors who you just named, hold any of these officers who killed and murdered these people accountable. So I really have no faith in the chief state's attorney's office. That is something we've been trying to shed light on, that we need structural changes statewide and locally in regards to police violence, and to really address and confront this issue. We have People Against Police Brutality, and our coalition has no faith in the chief state's attorney's office.
Okay, let me just read some comments. I don't know if I can catch up with all of them because they're hard to fit on the screen. Thank you everyone for listening, commenting. Julia Gauss, and I'm so sorry that I'm probably mispronouncing your name. Training to de-escalate, not escalate. This is done in other countries. We have a militarized police situation across the nation. This is not isolated. We keep hearing about this in every city. The problem is systemic. Lori Sweet, thank you for your leadership. Kerry Ellington, Solace Rise Moon. Their Yale Police Department jurisdiction will not be determined by politics because they are private. There are no policies for private prisons. I do not feel we will ever get answers from a private company. Why does Yale only have jurisdiction over their students? Rachel Liu, Justin. Oh, Solace also writes, we have enough video. These officers need to be fired immediately. Rachel Liu, Justin M. Farmer, I'd like to know why the videos haven't been released. I'd like to know why Officer Eaton hasn't been fired. Can you speak to that? And just let me give you the official version, which is that when they interview people who are involved in the case and the investigation, they don't want them to see the video because then they can change their story. And there is a process with a union when you fire somebody, and that you can't just fire them immediately. There's due process, labor rights. So that's the reason we get from officials. So what's your response to Rachel?
I'm frustrated because yesterday I got a letter to tread carefully on what I say, as I am an official that represents the town. Taking off my town headphones and just speaking as an individual, Justin Farmer as an individual. We can say that labor practices are there, but we also craft those labor practices. So we should be revisiting those rules and decisions to see how they work. And in terms of viewing those videos, police officers can often view those videos and have the ability to do that before they make their statement.
Can I give you an example of something I've worked with Kerry Ellington on? She's done a great job of helping the press find out about stuff we should look into. And there was a case last summer, I believe it was, with a man who was wrestled to the ground on the green, someone Kerry knew. And I wrestled as a result with the New Haven Police about body cameras because they told us the reason we're spending money on body cameras is to build public confidence, that if something is happening, we quickly get good information so people can see what happened rather than have bad information get out there. But then there's a catch-22. They say, how are we going to investigate if it's out there? In the example Kerry gave me and in one earlier about a misuse of a taser in a bodega, we actually had a good experience with the New Haven Police. We told them what we wanted. They told us that they were interviewing cops who had not seen the video, and that if they didn't interview them before they see the video, then those cops could change their story. But what they had to do in return for us so that we would believe them is that they would promise us they would quickly work on it so that it wouldn't be months, it wouldn't be weeks, it would be days. So in those two cases it works, but in most other cases it doesn't because police often use the broad excuse of pending investigation. We have one murder case that has been 20 years. We haven't gotten it because they say it's pending when it's not. Governor Rowland was elected because a local police chief who was his fundraiser had a police report when he was arrested for domestic violence and didn't release it ever because he said it was an ongoing investigation, which it wasn't. So there are extremes, but there are also sometimes ways to work with police. So Kerry, what's your take on this? Do you think they should ever hold it a few days to do those interviews?
No. I mean, to the point I just made, we have yet to see officers be held accountable in this state for any of the murders I just
Not
noted.
for the murders, but in that bodega case,
Yep.
they did discipline the officers after, and they did interview them. We saw the video, and we got it 5 days later. I felt pretty good about that.
Well, the point of the body camera footage, I mean, really, right? The movement for body cameras came from the massive and the frequent killing of Black and brown people, state sanctioned killings of Black and brown people in this country. And the point of it was for transparency. The point of it was to know what is happening in these interactions where people are ending up dead, people who are unarmed, people who have done nothing wrong. What is happening? We want to know. So the point of it is for transparency, and it's for the point of it is for the public to see immediately. This is not a political tool, and it shouldn't be used as one, and it shouldn't be withheld from the public. Our stance is that body camera footage should be released immediately. It's the point of the body cameras. And I just want to speak to the point of to the city of Hamden. From what we understand, the city of Hamden, the police commission, if they were kind of not being cowardly right now, they could suspend Officer Devin Eaton for up to 10 days without pay, without triggering any union or labor relations issues. The chief has the power to suspend right now Officer Devin Eaton for 5 days without pay. So that's a total of 15 days without pay. Currently, Hamden Police Officer Devin Eaton is collecting his income, and he's on what we understand paid leave, which is paid vacation. That is unacceptable. And just a point, when you talk about the systemic violence here, I just want to point this triple occupation of Newhallville out. What happened here is not solely a matter of these two individual officers, but a larger systemic issue where Newhallville and New Haven and Black and brown communities in New Haven are being over policed. It is not okay. It's actually horrifying. Let me correct my language. That Yale police can come into Newhallville, that Hamden police have jurisdiction in Newhallville, and that New Haven police have jurisdiction in Newhallville. And that in a situation like the one in a lethal shooting like the one on April 16th, when the community is looking for justice, there is no clear governance structure for that community to get justice. And when New Haven says, when the first response from our city is that New Haven had nothing to do with this, that is to me, that is complicitness. The mayor is just as complicit in this issue, in this shooting, as Hamden is and as Yale is. New Haven has the ultimate responsibility here to protect its citizens, and Newhallville should not be being policed by 3 police departments.
Okay. We only got a couple minutes left, and I'm very sorry because we started this one late, and Brian Slattery's waiting patiently. I want to give a few people a chance to weigh in. Solace Rise Moon says we have enough videos, fire them immediately. Mark Furless says Yale refuses to hire people from the surrounding neighborhoods. They have a segregated bus system and a private police force. Molly Wheeler says Yale's footprint and the demands of people with no allegiance of care for New Haven are pushing for elevated and visible presence. And Solace says, what's the answer for a private mercenary group protecting an institution? Boy, we could talk about this all day, and I'm really sorry our time has run out because Carrie Ellington and Justin Farmer, they're the people who are keeping this issue alive so that we don't forget what happened on April 16th. And we try to get some answers. What do you want our listeners to do very quickly in 20 seconds as a result of this, and what do you want to have happen next?
We would like everyone to call for the termination of Officers Devin Eaton and Officer Terrence Polak of Yale Police Department. We would like people to call the Mayor's Office of Hamden to get in contact with people on the Police Commission to demand an independent investigation that would start the proceedings, that would allow for the proceedings to start to terminate Officer Devin Eaton for formal proceedings. And we do not want an internal affairs investigation. We want Hamden to hire a third-party arbiter to investigate, and we want Hamden to do that at this moment. We do not want to wait for the Chief State's Attorney's Office and their results. This officer broke department protocol. We want him fired. The same goes for Yale officer Terrence Polak. We want Yale University to come out of silence. It is complete. It's a disrespect to the communities in New Haven that work at Yale, that service Yale, that Yale has yet to say anything to the public about this matter, and has yet to ensure the public that this officer will not walk the campus of Yale and will not police the streets of New Haven. We need to know that. And until then, we will continue to organize. So please stay involved with the organizing. Continue to pressure Yale and Hamden, the city of Hamden, and the city of New Haven. And like People Against Police Brutality page on Facebook, we will be showing up May 6th at the Hamden Legislative Council, and we'll be storming the Hamden Police Commission on May 8th. And we will be continuing to organize on Yale campus, and we will begin to organize on the city of New Haven, because the city of New Haven has just as much of a role to play in this as Hamden and Yale does.
I got to run. I'm sorry, I got to boogie, guys. Thanks for
thank you.
Thanks for coming on, folks. You were listening to Justin Farmer, Carrie Ellington at the front lines of seeking some answers and change in the wake of the April 16th shooting. Thanks for listening to Dateline Hamden on WNHH. We're going to take it out, the Afro-Semitic experience performing I Wish I Knew How It Would Feel to Be Free from the group's CD, A Plea for Peace. This is Paul Bass inviting you to fly free with us all day and all night long at WNHH, New Haven and Hamden's home for community radio. And Brian Slattery's up next.